Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Kelly Jenkins.
So first of all, I just want to thank you all for letting me be here. And I have a very strong Southern accent at times when I come rolling along because I'm from East Tennessee. And a lot of my story of my life takes place in East Tennessee for the first 49 years of my life, basically. When I was born, the doctor held me up, looked at my body, and said, Mr. Jenkins, based on everything I see right here, you have a young son. Now, when you're born, you can't speak. You can't yell out to the doctor, you've got it wrong, doctor, you've got it wrong. I am not a boy. Yes, I might have the parts when you look at me externally that says I'm a boy, but inside of me, I am not. And for the rest of my life, I have been working to A, not believe people when they tell me that I'm wrong with who I identify as, and B, overcoming those doubts and those fears that were thrust upon me so I could become my most potential person that I could be. It was not easy. There were a lot of hard parts in my life. But before we can really talk about my story, we have to get some of the vocabulary down. We have to talk about some of the words that are going to be coming up. These are some of the basic terms. So I'm going to use myself as an example for these terms here. So where it says sex assigned at birth, that's the story where I said, the doctor held me up and said, based on everything I see, you have a baby boy. I agree with that doctor that chromosomally I am male. I cannot change that. It's there. My gender identity, who I have always, since my youngest memories of my life ever, I am a female. So I've had these two contradictions my whole life. And I had people in my life that didn't have access to knowledge. They didn't have access to this vocabulary right here. So what my family did instead was they told me I was wrong. I don't know if anybody has, if you have ever professed something about yourself as a human being and somebody tell you you're wrong, but it is hard to overcome that, especially when it's people in power, when it's your parents that tell you you're wrong, when it's the pastors of your churches that tell you that you're wrong, when it is your teachers that tell you that you're wrong, when it's your government that tells you that you're wrong, you start believing it, and you start losing faith in yourself. So my gender identity, I am female. As strongly as any other female in here feels as a female, I am a female. That's my gender identity. That is something that happened in my brain when I was born that made my brain and my external chromosomal body be different. I can't control it. I have no choice in that feeling. One thing that I do have the choice on is my gender expression. Now, I have always been identifying as a female. Chromosomally, I was always a male, and for the first 40 years of my life, I presented my gender expression was that as a male. In other words, when I would go shopping, I would shop in the men's department instead of the women's department. When I would go get a haircut, I would get a man's haircut, not a woman's haircut. So those parts of my body, the expression of who I am externally to the world, that part was male. I hated it. It wasn't me. It was a lie. It was me wanting to be what the world said that I was. The world said to me, you're a male. Look at you, Kelly. You're an athlete. Look at you. You're tall. You're muscular. You've got all of these things. You have the body of a male. You are not a female. I've spent a lot of my time unraveling that part of who I am. I've spent a lot of my life discovering more strongly that it's okay for me to be me. And I have to think that everybody, not just me, goes through that in their life. They're always on a quest. There's always a search for who are you? Who am I? Am I this? Am I that? Now, as I went on this exploration, and because I was unable to be my authentic self, a lot of bad things started happening with me. I started laying out of school. I couldn't stand going to school and pretend to be a boy one more time. I couldn't do it. Every day, my entire life, very first day of kindergarten, I walk in. Kelly, you got to line up with the boys because that's where the boys go to the bathroom. That's the boys' line. I didn't know until about that time that who I was, who I thought I was, who I am, was not the way that the world saw me. Once I went to elementary school and I had to line up with the boys to go to the bathroom, I learned very early that it's better to just say yes and line up with the boys rather than go against what I am. Rather than go against my parents, rather than go against my teachers, rather than go against my pastor. Religion was really big in this. Now, this last one right here, sexual orientation, that has nothing to do with my gender identity. Nothing. Who I perceive myself as, who I am, has no bearing on who I am romantically or sexually attracted to. The two are totally different. Not anywhere near one another. I'm not going to get into who I'm attracted to or anything like that because it doesn't matter. But just know, just like every other person has a variety of sexual orientations, so does the trans community. We are no different in that sense. Some of us like men, some of us like women, some of us like people that neither identify as a man or a woman, some of us like people who identify as both a man and a woman, some of us don't like anyone. So that sexual orientation is not anything to do with me being transgender. Nothing. So whenever you think about a transgender woman, a lot of times people boil it down to sex. I am far more than just that. I'm an educator. I teach your children, your middle school children, your little bitty grandchildren. I teach them science. I just got my Massachusetts teaching license just a month ago because I had to leave Tennessee. And I see the head nodding over here. Yep, I understand. I had to leave Tennessee because I could not be my authentic self and teach middle school. They did not let it happen. I was let go of many, many jobs because I'm transgender, which goes into a whole other part of the story about economics for the transgender community. The only reason that my gender expression can change is because I have the finances to change it. I had the ability to have money. I had the ability to get a job, save money, go to work, earn a living, and then go shopping in the proper section of the store. Then start medicine to transition. Then start going to therapy so that I could get better mentally from all of the beatdown, from all of the oppression that I'd felt my whole life in East Tennessee. Then I was able to heal. But without that money, it wouldn't have happened. There are lots of people like me that never transition. Now the word transition, you want to go to the next set, are these terms. Transgender is an umbrella term. I am a transgender woman. What that means to me is when I was born, Doc held me up, said, Miss Jenkins, you got a boy. I tried to kick him, but I was too little. Little babies don't want to kick that strong yet. So instead, my family raised me believing that that doctor was right. And who can blame them? You know, they were raised in an era when there wasn't access to Google, there wasn't access to the internet, there wasn't access to other people that had knowledge. So what they used for their knowledge was the Bible. Wonderful book. Fantastic book. But that book was used as a weapon against me. And because of that, that brought up a whole nother level of problems that I had to work through. But we'll get to that part of it in a minute. Trans is just an abbreviation for transgender. It is a prefix, so you can say that I'm a transgender woman. You can also say that I am trans feminine. You can say that I am trans. A trans woman means I was sex assigned at birth, now that we've used that word a couple of times, was male. I'm now, and always have been, a female, but my gender expression has changed to it. Transmasculine would be someone whose sex assigned at birth was female, meaning the doctor held the kid up, looked at the mom and said, "You got a baby girl." They were wrong again with the transmasculine person or the transgender male. And there's not a lot of us on the planet. So for a long time in my life, I thought I was alone. I didn't know that there were a whole of these other identities floating around out there. Didn't have a clue. I was raised male, female, end of question. No more questions asked, nothing. And I kind of bought into that because I was a female and I saw the opposite of male, so I'm like, okay, there's just male and female. It's just that people cannot see who I am. They cannot see that I am female. There's all these other identities. There's man, there's woman, there's gender nonconforming. Gender nonconforming or gender fluid. That means there are people, human beings, that breathe oxygen in and needed to live that neither associate with a male gender or a female gender. There are people out on this planet that breathe the oxygen just like you do, that think they are both male. Let me rephrase that. They don't think, they are. They are both male and female. And then there's people out there that it's fluid. Some days they feel more masculine than others. Those are all legitimate identities these people have. It is self-identified. There's not a whole lot that they can do about it. What we can do is we can ask you all, as we change our gender expression, to use the proper pronouns with us. I've been called a he after I've transitioned. Looking like this, people have called me he just out of anger, just out of not being willing to respect me as who I am, or just to be hurtful, or just to be ignorant. Ignorance is a dangerous thing in my world because ignorance can also lead to dehumanizing of me. There's a lot of people that don't even see me as a human being. They have put me in some kind of category of less than. I am not less than. I am not more than. But I darn sure am your all's equal. I'm sorry to say that, and if that offends people here, I don't even apologize for that. I am your equal. You are my equal. That's just how it has to be. You're a human. I'm a human. So the pronouns are huge to us because people use that as a weapon against us. I am not going to accept who you say you are, so I'm going to call you a pronoun that you are not. That I think that you should be. That I'm going to put upon you because of my own personal beliefs. And you end up swinging at every single pronoun you hear that's incorrect. I just would go up, you're wrong, you're wrong. And I would keep fighting this because I wasn't, the first 40 years of my life, I presented as a male. This word here, cisgender, means And this is a complicated term also, I think. I'm not so sure that I like this term, but it's the closest that we have right now. So when the doctor held you up and said, based on everything that I see, you have a baby, whichever, male or female, and as you are raised through your life, you don't disagree with that, what's on your birth certificate. You don't think the doctor got it wrong. You don't think, what the heck, I should have kicked him harder so he would have changed his mind then and wrote the correct letter. But you all are cisgender if whatever is on your birth certificate matches your internal self of identity. So my guess is the vast majority of people here are cisgender. I don't really know what that means, because if I were to ask each and every one of you, explain your gender to me, I would get a different answer, I bet, for each and every one of you. So I'm not really sure that any of these terms work that we're using, and I like the term human. But we're not there yet. We're not there because people are trying to take my rights away from me. People are still trying to oppress transgender people. They're trying to keep us from serving in the military. They're trying to keep us from marrying. They're trying to keep us from adopting. They're trying to keep me from using the women's restroom. Me. They want me to go to the men's restroom. Now. If the law passes, I want to do it. I'm going to walk right in the men's restroom and say, here's your law. That would be horrible. I wouldn't do that, actually. I'd be very afraid to do that. So let's go on to the next one. We're going to go to some of those misconceptions. So we're going to go beyond the terms that I just told you, because there's more to this. There's also, go ahead, there's also people that say, this is a secret. Transgender people are born all the time. So that means when people say this is a phase, that's like telling me my whole life, this is a phase. You're not really a woman. This phase has been going on for 53 years now. One of the greatest phases ever. So this is a phase is something that people use, especially with young children. I work at a camp in New Hampshire called Camp Aranudit. It is a camp for children who are gender variant, gender nonconforming, transgender. In other words, they don't fit the male-female. Those kids are amazing. They've accepted who they are. Their parents have accepted who they are. Their school systems have accepted who they are. Some of them, the exact same story is different. Some of them, their parents have brought them there because they think it is just a phase, and if we take them to this camp and let them play dress up for a week, they'll come back and they'll be over it. Doesn't happen that way. Wasn't a phase for me. Wasn't a phase for a lot of them. But I do have to tell you, there are also kids, I'm going to be honest about this because I think it needs to be heard. There are kids who think they are transgender. Their parents say, okay, let's explore this because I love you. I want you to be happy. So the kid transitions. Transitioning means that you go from presenting as one's gender to presenting as your authentic gender. 5 years later, this kid looked at her mom, and said, I might not be transgender. I want to go back to my sex assigned at birth. You know what that mom did? She didn't freak out. She didn't cry and say, but we went so far down this road. She said, okay, I love you. Let's figure out how to make this happen. And that can happen with us too. That doesn't mean that it was a phase. It means that this kid's gender identity is fluid at this moment. And so this kid is exploring who they are, and they have a loving parent who is going to allow them to find out who they are. That's scary. I couldn't imagine. I'm not a parent. But I couldn't imagine how scary that must be for a parent to say, yes, I want to go down this path with you. Instead of doing like my parents who said, no, we're not going down that path. You're going to go to hell if you go down that path. Nobody's ever going to love you if you go down that path. We're not going to love you if you go down that path. You'll never find a job if you go down that path. The hardest one for me, I was raised Southern Baptist evangelical. hardest part for me is, it's hard to even say it. The hardest part for me is to know that I am loved by the universe. I don't know if you can call it God, you can call it spiritual being, you can call it Allah, you can call it the energy of the world, but I am part of it and I'm appreciated by it. That was very hard for me to accept because I was told that no, I wasn't. Very tough life to be told that you're going to go to hell at 12 years old. I get out of church one day. There's my preacher waiting for me. Because that's what all preachers do when 12-year-olds get out of school. They sit there and wait for them. Said, Kelly, come here, we need to have a talk. I hadn't known, but my parents had gone talk to this preacher. We need to talk. Come here in the car. You know, if you keep doing this, if you keep wearing women's clothing, if you keep pretending to be a girl, you're going to go to hell. And the only way that we're going to stop this right now is if we pray. And boy, did we pray. I mean, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and that man got me to say that I was saved, and then said, you're healed. Congratulations, you have Jesus in your life now. You're no longer transgender. So I went home. Guess what? I was still transgender. So I thought, it must not have taken, God. It must not have taken. So I prayed. I went to church more. I prayed harder. I would pray that I would no longer be transgender. I would pray everything I could think of to try to not be my authentic self, to not have these feelings. I was as devout a Christian as any Christian I know. Didn't work. I was still transgender, and what happened was the churches started pushing away from me a little bit. As I started tiptoeing towards my authentic self, that one thing that a lot of people really hold on to in life, their church, for that spiritual solidness, that spiritual space to help you through life, they pulled the rug right out from under me and wouldn't allow me to be my authentic self. So the church abandoned me. As I transitioned, I lost a lot. I speak with my mother on a phone, but I've not seen her in 15 years because she is having troubles with who I am. She loves me dearly. I know this for a fact. She loves me with all of her heart and soul. I am one of her children, but she cannot stomach the idea of seeing me. She cannot stomach the idea of discussing who I am. My siblings have taken it one step further. They just won't talk to me. So for me, becoming my authentic self, I lost a lot. But I found me. And that can never be taken away from me. I have lost so much from it, but I have gained so much from it. I lost 3 jobs in East Tennessee. I'm a teacher. Like I said, I want to teach your grandchildren. In Tennessee, I was presenting as a male. My gender expression was male. I made the mistake of telling someone that I'm transgender. Just that simple thing. A colleague of mine, I sat down one night and I'm like, I've known you for 5 months now. You seem like a decent person. I've got to share this with you. She went and told my principal. I lost my job. Had great observations, had great working skills. I was still presenting as a male, but because I was transgender and had not even transitioned yet, but because I even said the word, I lost the job. But I'm also stubborn. So I got my resume, and what I did, I went to every school in that school system and handed in my resume to each and every school. Wouldn't you know it, one of them hired me. Loved me. Thought that I was a great teacher. Then the paperwork and the rumor mill gets around and they find out that I'm transgender. Lose my job. So I'm stubborn. Filled out another resume. Took it around to all of the other schools that I hadn't applied at. And another one hired me. And they liked me so much that they said, we're going to rehire you for the next year even. Here's your letter. They found out I'm transgender. I keep waiting all over the summer months to hear from the principal, and I never hear, so I go down to the school. Principal won't see me. Secretary tells me if I don't leave, that they're calling the police. That's my life in Tennessee. Here's the part that kept me alive in Tennessee, because there were many times that I did not want to fight this fight anymore. The things that kept me alive in Tennessee were my friends. My friends never said, Kelly, wouldn't it just be easier if you didn't tell people that you're trans? Or wouldn't it just be easier to not even transition? Wouldn't it be easier to keep it a secret? This is our dirty little secret, Kelly. Don't let anybody know that you're transgender. I agreed with them. So I went what is called stealth. Stealth means that if you had come up to me and said, are you transgender? I would have said, no, you're lying, you're wrong, I'm a woman. I would not have even owned up to who I am then. Stealth means that when I fill out applications, when I talk about my life, I can't talk about my past before I transition. Because guess what? When I was this tall, I looked like a little boy. And I played little boy sports. And I did little things that little boys do for a couple of reasons. Little girls can do those things too. Little girls can play sports. Little girls can go run around and get dirty and muddy. Little girls can go climb trees. And I did those things. But those were used against me also. Girls don't climb trees. Girls don't play sports. And all the time, every time I would try to become my authentic self, my family, my teachers would push me back. But my friends never did that. My friends just said, Kelly, we like you. You tell a pretty good joke every once in a while. We like hanging out with you. So they didn't ever say to me, wouldn't it just be easier if you just pretended to be a man or didn't tell anybody that you're transgender? No, it's not easier. It's hard to lie your whole life. I got really good at it. I got really good at lying to myself, to my family, to my friends, to everybody. Because I couldn't accept who I was based on every bit of information I was receiving down in Tennessee. So my friends were there. They wouldn't say to me, wouldn't it be easier? This one here is still a struggle for even some of my friends. My best friend on this planet, her daughter's first birthday party, I'd helped her through her entire pregnancy. When her kid was born, I helped her night and day. When her kid finally got to its first birthday party, I wasn't invited. Because her neighbor, who had a one-year-old also, they didn't want their kid to be exposed to a transgender person at 1 year of age. Because I'm contagious. So my best friend wouldn't let me go to her child's first birthday party out of the pressure of society of East Tennessee. Now imagine, she did that. She's not transgender, she's just a friend of mine, and she crumbled under that pressure. Picture me fighting that pressure. I crumbled a lot. I crumbled a lot. I did things that I'm not proud of to survive. Drinking was a big part of it. But it was amazing. When I transitioned, I quit doing all these things that were bad for me. It was amazing. It was like this huge veil was lifted off of me. I didn't have to drink to hide the pain. I didn't have to do drugs to hide the pain. I just was me. And I can't explain to you the joy of not being allowed to be yourself and then becoming yourself, even when you've lost everything, to look in the mirror and say, I like that person I see. That was a lot of work to get to that point. I'm not going to work the system. In other words, I'm not just going to say this so that I can go into the women's restroom just so I can be inappropriate. This one right here, boys in the girls' room? No, I want girls in the girls' room. I don't want to have to go to the men's room. Had to do it for 40 years. Did not like it once. Don't want to go back to it. Don't know that I will go back to it. But there's a chance that that might happen in other parts of this country. It is happening in other parts of this country where I would have to go use the men's restroom by law. They're kind of trying to change that in Massachusetts a little bit right now. Come November, they're trying to change a law to say that I'm not going to be welcome in public accommodations. In other words, this fine meal, y'all have the best meals here. That was wonderful out there. Thank you for inviting me. It was very good, Paul. Thank you. Right now, with the laws in Massachusetts, Janet couldn't come up to me and say, Kelly, we had a complaint against you for being transgender. You need to leave. And out I go. You can't do that to me right now. Come November, that law, there's an attempt to repeal that law. And that would mean that Janet could come up to me and say, Kelly, there's a person here that doesn't like you being transgender. You have to leave. And I would have to get up and leave. That's what this law is trying to do. It's not trying to keep me out of the girls' bathroom. It's trying to keep me out of everywhere. Let's go to the next slide. Here is that law. No person shall be excluded from or discriminated against in admission to a public school of any town or in obtaining the advantages, privileges, and courses of study of such public school on account of race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, or sexual orientation. This law was put into place in 2011. This is for public schools. Public schools have this protection. Even if I get my rights taken away from me, these kids are still going to have their rights. You can't take those away from them. They're there. So in other words, that kid that I work with in 7th grade that is finally becoming brave enough to express their true identity to the world, the school can't tell them to stop. The school can't say, no, not here. That's because this is Massachusetts and not Tennessee. In Tennessee, Janet could say to me right now, Kelly, somebody doesn't like you talking in here. You need to go. And I would have to go. I have no protections in Tennessee. So this law here is just for children. It took me another 3 years or 5 years to have the same rights as these children in Massachusetts. They got their full rights and protections before I did. And a lot of people will say, why do you need protections? I just told you my story of what happened in Tennessee. None of that would have happened if I'd had protections. That's a tough pill to swallow. That this state, which is 900 miles away from Tennessee, is so different that I'm not welcome there as a teacher, but I'm welcome here, still in this great country. Thank goodness for states' rights, because I wouldn't want them to all be like Tennessee. I wouldn't know where to go. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So what we're going to do now, I told you about some differences in people. I'm going to show a story. It's a 14-minute long video. It is about a young child named Riley. Transmasculine. In other words, the kid, when they were born, doctor held them up and said, "You got a baby girl." Riley tried to kick the doctor and tell the doctor they were wrong, but couldn't do it. So this is a story from the parent's perspective. This is the parents raising a transgender child. This story is 180 degrees from my story. Like I said before, that's not my story. That story there, my parents love me, like I said, very much so. These parents had the opportunity to have access to information now. I have to believe that if my parents had had access to information, that they too would have been much more open about this. But it wasn't there. So I do want to talk about what has happened since I've moved to Massachusetts. Ryland's story of acceptance and appreciation and fulfilling dreams of becoming their authentic self, that is me in Massachusetts. Since I moved up here 4 years ago, I volunteered at that camp in New Hampshire. It changed my life. I met these kids being their authentic selves. I got home and I packed my 4-door Honda Civic with anything I could shove into it, including my 2 dogs and my cat, and I left Tennessee. I knew no one up here. I knew, had we met yet? I don't even know if there's some people here we might have met. But these people, when I moved here, they didn't know me. They knew me from this camp, and that was it. 1 week at the camp, and I met these people, and I went on Facebook, and I said, hey, I've got to get out of Tennessee. Can you help me? Can you help me find, where's a good place to live in Massachusetts? Where's a good place to get a job? And somebody in that group that volunteered at the camp said, just come live with me. Get out of East Tennessee. Knew me for a week and said, get out of East Tennessee. I get up here, and remember, I had no furniture. Nothing. So somebody said, Kelly, we just kind of combined a couple of houses together. Come over here. Let's go shopping at our house for furniture. And I now have a fully furnished house. That person knew me for 1 week before they did that. So I move up here, and I start working my life. I start trying to find jobs as teachers because I'm an educator. I play my favorite sport on the planet, disc golf, frisbee golf. And a person that plays frisbee golf with me heard my story, and he goes, Kelly, you need to tell your story on my TV station because guess what? I'm a manager of a TV station. And I was like, there is no way. Are you kidding me? Me get in front of a camera? A year ago I was stealth, not telling anyone I'm transgender. Now you're wanting me to get in front of a camera and tell the world? No. Called me again. Kelly, please do it. No. Then he said, Kelly, I was driving home from Camp Aranuk. I will remember this day forever. He said, I've hired somebody new. They've made this movie. I want you to see this movie. It changed my life. The person that made the movie is this gentleman right here. He works at ActonTV with me. I cried right there on the spot in a parking lot with my friend. It was the ugly cry, too. I didn't care. I said yes to the TV station. That was 24 episodes ago of my award-winning TV show called Kelly's Quest. You can go onto YouTube and type in Kelly's Quest, and you can see these videos that I've made, these TV shows that I've made. Since I've lived here, I've interviewed parents of transgender kids. I've interviewed transgender kids. I've interviewed religious leaders. I've interviewed politicians. Anybody I can think of that wants to share their story. I've interviewed cisgender people. I've discussed puberty with people. Anything I can think of to broaden people's education and information on this, because that's very important to me. So I kind of want to give you just one little snippet very quickly of my episode. It is a pastor from All Saints Episcopal Church, and this is just him talking about what his church did to become a welcoming community for people like me. For a Christian church to be welcoming for the transgender community, Bill, I find one of the more important things. Nothing against the Unitarian Church, but there's this belief, especially in the South, that am I going to go to hell and it doesn't matter my good deeds simply because I'm transgender? And that's because of the Bible and my family using that as a weapon. Your church is not like that.
As you know, I grew up in the South. So even though I grew up in the Episcopal Church, in the South, everything had a Southern Baptist ethos to it.
Yes.
So I understand that little voice in the head that when we do something wrong can be very cruel and mean and ugly. I'm aware of that, and I'm also aware how easy it is. You can prove anything in Scripture and just pull any verse out you want. So what we do, I think, in the Episcopal Church, and what I do and what we do at All Saints, is we don't focus on concepts to begin with. We focus on the man, Jesus. And for us, Jesus is our description, our image of God. So if you can imagine if you look at Scripture and you see Jesus welcoming all sorts of people, talking about, there's a passage where he talks about intersex people and embraces and loves, then our next move is to say, well, this is the heart of God.
That's the kind of people I'm getting on the show now. People that I want to challenge me to my thinking. This man right here, a Christian minister, said, we love you in our church. We want you in our church. Be in our church. Didn't have that growing up. Since I've moved here, I have a job at Wellesley Middle School. I have a teaching license that I just got a month ago. I got that license because NPR decided they wanted to do a story about a transgender person. One of my coworkers happened to know the person from NPR. NPR did this story on me. Somebody in New Jersey, who I've still not met, heard the story and said, my son and I want to help you get your teaching license. Created a GoFundMe page, raised the money for my teaching license, and I've still not met her. We talk on the phone, we email, we Facebook, but she's in New Jersey, I'm here, and we have not met yet. We're trying to make it happen this summer. But that's the impact of moving to Massachusetts. That's the impact of me getting to become my authentic self. That's the impact of you all accepting me as my authentic self. That's my school system being brave enough to let me do the NPR story, because they did it about me being an educator. My school has had me teach all of the other teachers in my school. Every kid in the school knows that I'm transgender. We teach social studies classes that now incorporate LGBTQ people into the history lesson. All of this stuff is happening around me. In 4 years, all of that has happened. It has changed my world. So let's go to the next one. So, coming up soon in November, you have a vote. You can vote no and take my rights away and say I can't go into public accommodation, or you can vote yes and say that I deserve equal rights with you. And let's just look at what the public accommodations are in this state. Hotels, inns, and motels. I can be kicked out of them if this bill, if the ballot question is repealed. Restaurants, bars, any place that serves food, I can be kicked out of. Can't go to see the Patriots or the Bruins, I could possibly be kicked out. Can't go to see concerts. Can't go to a store, can't go to Target. Can't go to the laundromat, can't go to a bank, can't go to a lawyer, can't go to a dentist, can't go to an insurance company, can't get gas for my car. They're not trying to keep me out of the women's restroom, they're trying to keep me out of society. And I'm trying my best to keep it from happening. Because darn it, I don't want it to be like Tennessee up here. I've worked too hard to get away from that. I worked too hard to find myself up here. I worked too hard to quit. If it does get repealed, I'm packing up and heading back to Tennessee, because I'll fight down there if I'm going to have to fight again. Might as well fight in my home where it doesn't get 1,000 feet of snow in the wintertime. But that's not going to happen, because this is Massachusetts. I've been here for 4 years. There's good people here. So this is the last thing before the questions. I'm going to just put this up. Vote yes November 8th, please. Now, if you disagree that I should have equal rights with you, if you agree that you should have the right to kick me out of a place just because you don't want me to be there because I'm transgender, you are more than welcome to that right. But if you keep me from doing things on the planet, if you keep me from going out to the world, if you keep me from having a job, then I'm going to have to depend on your tax money to raise me. So it's kind of your choice. Vote no, and then take care of me on welfare because you done said I can't go to any of these places anymore and get a job, or vote yes and let me continue to work in my school and be a teacher and earn a living and go home at night and walk my 2 dogs. But that's the important part for me. I hope I do not lose my rights. And more importantly, thank you all so much for letting me do this. So much. Very much appreciated. And I am more than happy to answer questions. Janet, have time. If you want to stay and ask questions, that's fine. All questions are welcome as long as they're asked with respect. So any questions from anyone? I know I didn't answer everything.
I can't believe that's on the ballot. But it is. It is. Jesus.
Can we just clarify, there was, what's going to be on the ballot? What's going to be on the ballot in November is an effort to repeal a ballot initiative that passed. Am I right?
It was a law that was written by the legislature.
It was a law that was written by the legislature.
Yes.
And someone has gone out and gotten enough
Enough.
signatures
Yes.
to put that into question on the ballot.
Yes.
We don't yet know what ballot
We don't know the ballot number yet.
number it is. Watch for the number, the ballot number, right? And turn out, and you all know, we've done voter registration before here. So it's, what is it, September?
November 8th.
November 8th? September 8th. November 8th. All right then.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why would anyone dispute you going into a ladies' room? If I saw you in the ladies' room, I would probably say to you, I really like your outfit.
Thank you.
Why would that be a problem?
So,
Kelly, I didn't hear the question.
okay, so the question was, why is it even a problem for me going into the women's restroom? Why is that even a strange foreign concept for people, for me to go into the women's restroom? She said, she saw me in the restroom, she would say, I like your outfit. And that would be the extent of it, nothing else. So, transgender people have varying degrees of gender expression. When I was presenting as a male, I would not have tried to go into the women's restroom, even though I was a woman, but I was presenting as a male. As I slowly transitioned, I kept using the male's restroom for a little bit, but then when I would walk out of the men's room, the men that were coming in would stop and look on the door to make sure that they were going into the men's restroom. So that was when I knew for sure that I needed to start using the women's restroom. But there was that time when during my transition, you could tell that I was transgender. It shouldn't matter whether you can tell or not if I'm transgender if I can use the women's restroom. And there are people that think that I am no more than a man in the women's restroom. No matter what I self-identify, no matter what I believe, no matter what I say. But I'm a woman. My chromosomally, I am XY. Absolutely, I'm XY. I cannot change that no matter how hard I tried. I could hold my nose and hold my breath till I turned blue. I would still be XY. But I am not going to walk in a men's restroom and use it. I'm just not. I said that I would earlier, and then as soon as I said it, I'm like, no, that's how I get beat up. Because I don't want to get beat up. There's a lot of violence towards trans people. We're an easy target. We're easy to be made less than human. We're easy to have the tool of using the Bible against us. We're easy to say you can't use the women's restroom because you're not really a woman. So it's kind of that, it's a fear, it's the expression, the way you look. Nobody said anything to me using the women's restroom since I moved up here. Not a word. Down in Tennessee, when I was transitioning, happened all the time.
Is it quite clear that, I'm trying to formulate this referendum that's up there seems on the face of it to me, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems on the face of it to be unconstitutional, or at least the interpretation that you have given it has unconstitutionality built into some of the aspects.
They're trying to get it into the courts.
So that's I guess really what's the question, what's the function? Yes.
Yeah, they're trying to get it into the courts. And really they're just trying to strike the law off the books completely. They're not trying to amend the law or anything, they're just trying to strike it down completely.
Now, what I was asking about was striking the referendum, not the rights, not the law that protects rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There are people trying in the courts to see if they can get it just to never even become a ballot question. It's going to become a ballot question. That's my take on it, that it's going to become a ballot question. Okay, great.
Okay.
Where do things presently stand in terms of transgenders serving in the military? Where does that stand right now?
Right now, President Trump has rewritten the ban. The courts have upheld my rights to serve in the military, and the military has upheld my rights to serve in the military. So as of now, transgender people can serve in the military openly.
Lead editorial, New York Times, is on that subject. Today's editorial.
Oh, really?
New York Times, yes.
Ken,
You'll have to,
what was your point? Can't hear you.
Oh, he said that right now on the New York Times, the lead story is about transgender people serving in the military. Lead editorial is about transgender people serving in the military. Thank you.
Would this referendum be on the state ballot or the city or town ballot?
It's a state ballot initiative. It's a state law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi there. Hello. Oh, I just wanted to commence by saying thank you ever so much
You're welcome.
for coming. It's been so enlightening and you're so brave and inspiring. My question was this. Forgive me if it sounds ignorant, and it really just comes from a genuine place of curiosity. In your journey, I'm wondering how you knew that you were female, and the reason I ask is because I suppose I am cisgender female, but I only know I'm a female because I'm told I'm female, and so I was just wondering how you know.
So the question is, how did I know that I'm female?
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this one, how did you know you were male or female or not male or female or gender non-binary? It's not something that evolved upon me, my identity. I was raised to think I was male, and I knew that was wrong. The way that I knew that I was female was because the same way that I saw all the other females knowing that they were females together, I wanted to be with those females. I wanted to do the things that I saw the females doing. I felt so deep inside of me that I should be with those girls. And had my family said, yes, you're female, I would have been with those girls. Where the problem came was when they told me no. And then I had to go work through that. Who's wrong, them or me? They were wrong. But that's a great question, actually. It really is a good question.
okay, I guess
I
we'll wrap
think,
this
no,
up.
there's one more.
One more.
Yep.
Kelly, I just want to tell you what a great spokesperson you are for your entire argument for being accepted as a transgender person by every single one of the people in this room. I hope if there's anybody who came here with a question mark, that question has been resolved for them. You really were great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.